All righty. Good evening, everybody. Um, as I said, I kind of this demo was a little quick, something I could throw together or talk about. Um, I've been asked many times the kind of finishes I put on pins and stuff, and I use one of two. I use either Hut, depending on what the in purpose is for, or if I want a fancier polish, I put a CA finish. So I'm gonna turn the exact same pin. And this is the Cigarello pin kit from Craft Supply. It is basically a cigar pin based on a 10 millimeter tube or sorry, a 7 millimeter tube instead of a 10 millimeter. So it's a little bit slender, but it still has a lot of bulk to the wood. Still, it's not that thin bit of a slim line. And it's an elegant, nice pin. That's one reason why I like. That's why I like it. So you get to see me. This is the nicest demo I've ever had because I only had to bring one tool with me. No, one. This is a yeah, well, one turning tool. Sorry, one turning tool. I've got lots of accoutrement, but this is my one turning tool. So, oh yeah, it was better than last night. They wouldn't say anything. I was like, "Come on, guys, talk to me, do something." All right, this is one thing you're used to. When you're used to doing a demo in a certain group, you're used to the rhetoric. Yeah, it's fine. And do. There we go. Feeling my fit. That feels a bit weird, but that's fine. May have gone too crazy on that. All right. Nice thing is, I will. It's a wood called Ma'akaaba. It is, if you look on the wood database website, this is the number one wood you've never heard of. Number one wood to work that you've never heard of. It's a beautiful wood, commonly referred to as orange agate when from like woodcraft or because it's the real name is such a weird one to say. No one they can't market it. But it's a beautiful wood. There's a bit of a curve both directions. This wood's a little thick in the center, but and it's the nice thing about the bushings. You can these two bushings are the same size. This one's thicker. That one's your standard 7 millimeter tube, your slimline bushing. And so either pin doesn't matter what my finish is. This is um, yes, I sand full speed. Um, it's a 7 millimeter tube. Yep. There is no there's no it's not riding on the bushing. It's just on the mandrel itself. 180 usually. and then I will go all the way up to 1,000. Doesn't matter what I'm on this. It doesn't matter if I'm going to do hut or CA. I will sand at 1,000. Yep, finer finish. I just like the way it makes the wood look better. I also don't stop and sand with the grain. Um, I just like the way it looks. It's been my method. This is not gospel. We may be in a church, but I'm not. This is not the gospel according to James. This is just how I decided to make a pen. It is. I use this is what I'm going to use hut on this one, and I use hut probably for 80% of my production work. A little bit of an imperfection there I didn't see until now. Everything. I like I said, 80% of my production work, which is if the scissor blocks that I make, I do seam rippers, an extendable magnet, um, boxes. It is in my opinion, it's a great finish. It's inexpensive. It goes on well, and it's fairly long lasting. In 10 years, I finally had somebody call me back and said they messed up the finish, and they scrubbed it with some sort of solvent, and it took the top of my finish off. It wasn't from normal wear. They put something on it they shouldn't have. And the nice thing is with the way I do it, I just gotta sand it, put it right back on, and ship it back to them. It's pretty simple. No, I don't. In general, I'd say my products are reasonably priced for the amount of work I put into them, and I also uh, I'm also not one to sell things wholesale, so or at least not much wholesale. They get mad whenever a store wants to buy my work. They get mad because I only give them a 20% discount, and they've got to buy at least 6 items. So that's my wholesale price. Hut. I'll show you in just a moment. We're almost there. Right now, we're getting through the annoying part, the sanding. Spend more time doing sanding than you do turning most of the time. Okay. Now, as a part of my finishing process, I will take a little bit of acetone, clean the blank. Find a dry spot, dry that off. I find that acetone doesn't raise the grain, and it cleans off all the fuzziness of the wood that you might get from sanding. But can I've seen people do it, then they sand. They usually go back and they sand over it when they put denatured alcohol. I just have found. I mean, you can come up here and feel it if you want. It feels perfect. Um, so I'm not worried about it. Now, hut comes in little packs like so. It's a whopping $9.99 at Woodcraft, and it comes in two sets, the brown and the white. You must always start with the brown. Repeat that. You must always start with the brown. This is the base coat. It's a what they call their matte finish. And if you just want a good a good finish, but not really shiny, it's fine. If I'm doing the inside of a box, I'll put that on the inside of the box. There's no reason to put the gloss on the high gloss on the inside of a box. But then take a piece of paper, a rag, I mean a paper towel, rag, whatever you want that you use, and then just melt it into the wood. It says clearly on the package that you must be spinning at 2,500 RPMs to get this to melt. So if you're not going that fast and you're wondering why this is not working, that's probably a good reason. Now I usually stop it at this point. I take a look, make sure I didn't miss a spot. My eyes are sweating in this thing. There you go. Yep, looks good. And then the second step is just as easy. White, get it up to full speed, melt a layer on top of the wood. What? Small box. I don't make big ones. This hand because it's smaller. Why do you think I'm missing a finger, man? I mean, I needed. I just couldn't get my fingers in the box, man. No, I've most of the time if I've done I demoed that little box here earlier this year for Easy Wood Tools, and that was all done with hut polish. The finish on that, and it's a great general polish, and that's as easy as it is to get this pin done. Now, and we're not even at 7 o'clock yet. I don't know when I started, but that's what's nice about this particular finish. It's quick, it's durable. The pencil I passed around has this finish on it because it's a shop pencil. It's not supposed to be something fancy. It's just a shop pencil. Um, I haven't had the only my only concern would be make sure that if that your it's solid. If it's overly punky, you might have problems. But in general, I mean, I've used it on everything from spalted woods on down, so it's not a wood that I'm overly. I haven't had a problem with it. I've used it on palm wood. I've used it on oak. I mean, if it's a burl, you might have some issues with if it's an open if you got a lot of cracks or voids in a piece of wood. But in general, for what I'm doing, at least it works pretty dang good. I gotta make sure there's a lower and an upper to this. You got to make sure that when you put this together, that's the biggest one. That line, yep, it goes that way. Now for the fun part, turning this pin again with a CA finish. And I have a pin press. I'll put these together. I've got so we can see them complete and all that fun stuff. No, I actually own a pin press. I do. I said, yeah, I know, and that was no, I have a pin press. There are advantages to both. Um, I will say, it said no. That was just a fun thing on. You don't have to have all the fancy stuff to do it. And there is. Um, I make a what's called a laying tool. To me, it looks like a vampire blow dart. It's about 6 inches long, half-inch thick, 2 inch handle, and tapers to a very very fine point. At that point, I converted a toothpick holder or a pill case. It's got a 9/16 tube in it, and I basically drill it in at both ends and mount the tube in on that side. Pressing the pin press isn't big enough, and so I'll use my lathe to press that item. Or if you want to do like the cigar humidor kits, those things are massive compared to what that pin press can handle. So there's a few times where being just the ability to set up and do it with this guy is really helpful. So, all right, round two. Works. About once a month. Because usually, I mean, this is not about every 15 minutes I do this. Usually before every when I'm doing larger projects, they usually take about 15 to 20 minutes. I'll run I'll run this my skew across my hone at the start of every project. Um, that's my wheels are a 350 grit wheel. That's a 600 grit hone. I just want a good fine edge for my skews, and it works really well. I have had this tool uh, almost 10 years now, and would say it's the one I use the most. Almost. There's a little bit of a lip, enough to where I know that 180 is going to take it down relatively easily. I don't want to. I don't need it perfect, but and also learn the bushings. Some bushings are great and some aren't. And so sometimes I have discovered there's certain pin kits you got to cut a little big or right to it or it's not going to work. So the first one of any new pin is always a fun moment. And then that's it. Shut this off. Well, usually you got to buy them through the kit from whoever sells the pin kit. Um, it's just a matter of if you want to look at the when you get them in, look at the information sheet either online or if it's PSI, they send one with it. They send an information sheet, and it will tell you what the dimensions of the bushing were supposed to be. Pull out a pair of calipers. If you got a digital caliper, check it to see how far off it might be. I know there's some people who make some fancier ones. I haven't felt the need to go fancier, so it's I mean, bushing's a bushing's a bushing, at least in my opinion. Um, I think in my career, I've had to replace only one set, and it's the pin I make the most. I've just sanded off enough of the bushing that it wasn't working anymore. It was too much. I've removed too much of it. I was at least nice. I did bring brand new sandpaper, so I can't you can't complain that it was the sandpaper's fault. And each gets their own side. Plus, I know these bushings had a bit of CA on them because I usually put a CA finish on a pin. Also, for my purpose and what I do, I always like to put the end of the pin, the pin you're going to hold on this end, simply because usually this is going to be the best joint you're going to have in your on your mandrel. If these are a little out of round and that's where you have your pin, you're going to feel that. If it's where you have the pin, the clip, they're not going to notice that as bad. So um, take that for what you want. Yeah, tip of the pin always to the headstock because this is going to be the tightest joint you're going to have in the grouping. I'm sure somebody told me that somewhere, but I discovered that also myself when I was doing these early on. All right. Yes. Um, in general, the rule is three times the amount of the expense. I usually start at $25, depending if it's a cheap cross pin, a slimline kin, because their kits are like $5. I'll sell those for 25. This is a $10 kit with wood and whatnot, so $35 depending on where they're at. You just got to try to keep your costs. You got to be able to be efficient about it. That's why I don't like making pins usually, unless I can make 10 or more, because at that point, 10 or more pins, because each step in the process is such a pain in the butt to set up and do it. It's just not cost. If I can divide that into multiple pieces, no problem. But if I have to do a one off on a pin, the it's just not cost effective, or at least not time for my time at least. I've sold pins anywhere from I think 90 has been the most expensive one I've sold. Just I don't charge. I'm not trying to make a fortune on them. I also don't use. I'm not going to go buy a $70 blank and throw that onto a pin, because now you're looking at 210 bucks just for the cost of the blank. And if it's a $10 pin kit, that's pretty cheap. I mean, granted, if you're getting into a junior gent or one of the 50 $60 pin kits that are out there that are gold and rhodium plated and all that other garbage, fine. Yeah, those pins are worth $300. We had that one gentleman in here at one demo. He was doing thread woven blanks, and those blanks started I think at $80 and went up to like 300 just for the blank. So if you're using a high dollar blank, yeah, you need to charge the money for it, because if you screw one up, you don't get any money out of it. Okay, all right, we've CA'd or we've acetoned. Now for the fun part. I think I got to switch the belt on this one. I don't think this thing goes slow enough. Nope, that's a little fast. 4 to 500 RPMs tops. This thing starts at like 650 on the high speed, which is where I was at for turning the pin. So switch it down to the medium belt, and then now I'm at 324, a little faster than that. Come on. Activate you, get you higher there. Okay. Yeah, 486. Yeah, that's good. Um, I want to be able to see this. I want to be able to make out and follow it along. This is about what I would call a thread chasing speed. You want to be able to, and a good way to do that is if you can follow the pattern down on the thread. This is a little, if I was thread chasing, it'd be a little bit slower. There we are. That's, I'm looking right here. Yeah, on the screen, y'all guys can't, you can focus in on that, Robert. There you go. You can see I want to be able to, if I can follow that up, which I can do, that's about what, if you were chasing a thread, that's about what you would want to be, that's the speed you want to be able to do it. Because then you can react fast enough. If it's going too much faster, you can't react fast enough to pull it away from the wood, or you'll destroy your thread. And if it's slower than that, it's grinding, not cutting. And so that's why I would do that. All right, turn that off. We don't need that running while I'm setting this part up. Um, I don't normally like demonstrating of CA finish because there's just so many different monsters out there. Um, and if you saw me demonstrate a CA finish earlier, this was probably different than the one I did last time. God knows. And that's just because all of us will pick up tips and tricks from somebody, and then if we like them, we use them. So, um, it's the one fun thing about this environment. There's always something to learn. Okay. I only use thin CA. Moreover, for the fact of I want a thin coat. I don't want to be able to hold my pin up and see a line, the CA resting on top of the pin. I want this still to look and feel as much like wood as I possibly can do. So that's why I use thin CA. What I do is I come over here, I put a little drop on that, and then I run up the pin and back down the pin. And that's it. No. And then I cut it off. And I cut it off because I don't want fuzzies if I rip it off. And I'll do on the first one, I start at the top or start at the top of the pin and work down. And then on the second one, I start at the base and work up. And then on this one, I pop a little bit of activator on the second coat. And then I do that until I have used this entire piece of paper towel. So we're going to be here for a little while. Normally at my house, I have a trash can that sits right there, and I just go over here and slip. I did that one time here, and I didn't realize it, but the burning of the CA, whatever, damages this floor. And so I'm like, nope, I'm not doing that. We'll get to that in a minute. Ooh, that one got a little high. Didn't stick to my finger. That's all that matters. I do use this is a Viva, and it's a patternless paper. It's like a cloth paper towel or whatever. I don't want a pattern. The blue shop towels work really good. That's just what I happen to have had in my kit. And then one of the problems about talking to people is I don't remember where I'm at sometimes. So I do multiple things over. More activator isn't going to hurt. You don't usually on thin it sets up fast enough you don't have to worry about it. I don't like using a medium or a thick simply because they put on too thick of a coat and it's uneven and it winds up you wind up having to sand through more of it than than not, and I don't care for that. I want to quick as I want to speed this process up as much as I possibly can. I usually get somewhere in the realm of 12 to 15 coats. I've never really, count the little pieces of paper over here when I'm done, but uh, I don't know. Don't ask. If I counted, I would mess up some other step, so I don't do that. Um, Now, if you're going to ask, I'm using stick fast. I don't always use stick fast. It's just what I happen to have right now. I have used tight bond thin. It doesn't matter. You can get a good finish with any CA glue as long as you stick to stick well with the finish. That and also use the activator for that particular brand of glue. They are not interchangeable because they all formulate their CA glues a certain way, and if someone's formula won't work the same way for somebody else's. And about the only one that doesn't or does is The only one that doesn't matter is Tide Bond doesn't have an activator. The green can works really well for them. This one doesn't work too bad. But that's about the only one I don't think it has an activator for it. Tide Bond does? Okay. I haven't. Oh yeah, I said blue can. Woo! All right. I gotta wait for it to dry because if I want to use the other side, it's got to be out of the. It's got to have gassed off. Yep, I can handle that. Yay! I didn't glue anything to my fingers. Fantastic. All right. Ugh, eyeballs are sweating. Yeah, I don't want that all over my box later on. Ooh, got a little bloom there. Oh, we should be able to get that out though. All right. I might. We'll see. A little bit of bloom. I got a little too close with the activator, and you'll get that it bubbles up. And so sometimes that depends on where it's at in the finish. It may have to come out. We'll see. Sometimes you can get through it. CA, you can by all means, because well, that's at least done, and I'm thankful that um though I would like to see Eugene, I'm thankful he's not here. I know he's allergic to it. But I also we always joked it was my grandfather used super glue and various dust to inlay initials and products. So carvings he did when I was a kid, and we swear that was the only thing that was keeping him alive. He inhaled so much CA glue. All right, now I usually take about an 800 grit and just kind of even the finish a little bit, just to make sure that there's not any major. Now this is very light. I am just tickling this thing right now. I'm not going for a death grip. We're not trying to polish shoes here. This is just to get me a good even break down the finish where I'm at, and I can see as I can see. I don't know if y'all guys can see where that's cloudy and yeah, you can see it's kind of cloudy and shiny. The shiny parts are what are where we're not down to yet. So I want to get that. I want to get an even finish, but I don't need to start at like 350. This six, 800, 1,000, depending on how bad it is, works fine. If I was going to do regular micro mesh, I would just start with 1,500 and work it until it was clean. I'm not going to use regular micro mesh. That should be enough though. Yeah, that's good. That's enough. All right. Utah State Symposium in 2018. I went to that and discovered this stuff. Dr. Kurt's Micro Magic polishing wax. Basically, those three cans replace this entire stack of sandpaper or micro mesh pads. Um, I find it much quicker, and I don't have to worry about wet sanding. It's designed to polish acrylics, so it works on either acrylics or CA finish. And one other thing that I like about it is if you wanted to do actual contours on like acrylics or CA or put a CA finish on that, this stuff will work to get into the grooves where you can get a really good polish on it that you can't always get with sandpaper on those units. So it's a pretty nice product. No, I am not monetized in any way with Craft Supply. I think they're missing out on that, but that's fine. I do promote a lot of their products. And this is you don't need a lot. You need enough to let the once the wax melts for it to buff in. but that's it. No, if I grab too much, that's my fault. Melt it in real quick. All right. Whee! Na, na, na. Progressively finer, higher, finer grits, basically. It's diatom. I know most of these are just a combination of like beeswax, mineral oil, and some diatomaceous earth. That's what that, I mean. It's similar to um, Yorkshire grit. It's just a finer powder in it. Um, Initially, yeah. Right now, I'm trying to clean it off so I can go to the next one. That one I was pretty heavy on just because I want to get the excess off. Um, what? Yeah, it's Dr. Kurtz. And if you have ever had the pleasure of meeting Kurt DeHere, he is a wonderful woodturner. And but he's also the brain behind all the Dr. Kurt products at Craft Supply. Um, you could also use this on hardwoods if you had say a cocobolo or a lignum vita or something of that nature. That's a really good dense oily hardwood. I'm sure this would give you a nice final polish on it. Ebony. You want enough you want to be able to see and it's kind of hard if you're not up here looking at it. You want to be able to see the stuff moving on the blank and I which I can. So that's the amount of pressure you need. Last one. It is a friction fit, I promise you. It's not screwed on. Not much on there. It's just those. That's probably a little heavy actually, but oh well. It's I think 13.95 for the incomplete set. They're like $4 or $4 a can individually. I don't want to say that's what the price is. At least last time I bought it, that's what it was. All right. Wee down a little bit so I don't sling it all over my face. I do start somewhere around 1,000 just so it's not fly doesn't fly right off on my face when I first turn it on, and then I'll speed it up to somewhere between 2 and 3,000 just to get final work in. You know it's working well when it polishes your blanks, your bushings too. All right, that's um. I haven't tried the micro mesh towels. No. Yep, the bloom is gone. That's great. That good. I don't have to worry about that. I have tried microfiber towels, and those tend to melt for me at least. The ones I've always had have kind of melted on me. Um, yeah, that's that's what I do first. Pop them off real quick. Uh, and I grab the little box they live in, and they go back in the box. And since I don't use these much anymore for doing these. This is what I use these for these days. Take them in, get rid of the fuzzies that you get from the CA finish on the end. It's already set up for it's already been trued off. I'm not trying to treat that. I'm just trying to get rid of and I spin there we go. That's done. Oh yeah, I'd take off my entire finish. Um, and then I don't use a plastic polish. I don't do any of the liquid polishes of that nature. What I do is um, I forget exactly who makes this. Okay, but never mind. I actually have it here. It's not Beal. Hold on. I'll tell you. Give me a second here. Uh, BJ Anthony, yeah, buffing system, acrylic pen buffing system. It uses this little blue thing. Uh, I got this from Craft Supply when I bought it. They had it at least, and then safety first. Yeah, this is basically you put the rouge on this side, and then turn it around, other side, and then buff it off. No, this is just to buff off the excess. That's all. It is just purely a one compound system. Oh, they're over there. I was like, well, where are the other ones at? I don't want to acrylic polish uh the other ones. Hmm. I'll turn it and turn it and do everything up until this point, and then I'll take them all over to the buffer and buff them at one time. Because you don't uh if you once you take them off the bushing, sometimes they the alignment will be weird and you'll get some funkiness on them. Like anything, removing it from the lathe and back and all that, it just causes some issues. Um, I mostly what I do these days is an extendable magnet that's off of it's a 10 millimeter two tube kit, and I'll turn 15 or so of them at a time. And I have a little rack I bought from him that was I think it was a thread rack you found somewhere, and I set them all on that thing, and then I'll go press them all together at one time, just because it's just easier for me to do it that way. There's some garage sale. He doubled his money. He made money on it. Yeah. What did you bought it for five? He bought it for five. I gave him 10 for it. I'm like, that'll help me out. That's fantastic. All right. I mean, how else you gonna double your money in what was that, like 3 days or whatever? I mean, Jesus, that's pretty good. It's a yeah, it is a mhm. It's amazing what you can find in yeah. I was like, we got someone one of the pin Christmas parties bought it was a little box about yay big, came with I think 25 of these guys. And this is the absolute best sucker in the world for holding your getting your bushings. And my wife owns a label maker and is not afraid to use it. And so they're at least labeled so I know which ones are there. And that is I just brought those today because that's all I was doing. Pin press. Do, 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 do. Nice thing about this kit is I don't have to worry about which because it's tapered. You don't have to worry about what side was what. Usually, if I'm doing a kit where I have a problem like that, when I before I take it off, when I take it off like this was the I'd take a black marker and mark the inside of both tubes on the inside, so at least that way, when I'm putting them back together, I know what my grain direction alignment's going to be. Um, and that's just my crazy way of figuring it out. I think this is pretty close to what um, if I'm not mistaken, should be pretty close to when this thing pushes all the way in. I have this pin press is dialed in for the Concava pin kit, which has a really weird it's not the bottom tube is longer than a standard slimline. And I remember correctly, this kit is about the same. It is, or I'll fix it. It was a little too much, but it's not bad. I'll take it. When I get home, I'll take it the disassembling kit and put it in, pull it apart and adjust it. Disassemble. Oh, that went to Johnny Five. No, no, no. All right. I always try to set up. Yeah, there it is. I always try to set up my pin alignment when it's open, so that way at least I know my grain's gonna look good when they're using it, not when it's closed. All right, next one. I always love the fact that anybody who makes pin kits looks like they're drug dealers. All these little baggies hanging around everywhere. Mm. Uh, I'm gonna swear if I knew any drug dealers, I'd be like, "Hey guys, here I'll give you some bags, dude. I got bunches of them." Press it harder. Yeah. If you're really desperate, you can put a little bit of CA glue. I would put a thick or medium CA on the metal component that you're going to press in. So that way, once you press it in, it's glued in there. So it doesn't come back out as easily. At least it can and will. Yeah, that's a little bit too big, but oh well, that'll work. That's why it's always good to look at the pin and figure out what's the imperfection you want to hide with the pin kit with the clip. That's the sole. I think I am convinced that that's the reason why they put shirt clips on pins on pin in pin kits because they want you to. So that way you know where you can hide. It's like a bare spot in a tree. So that way you know what part of the Christmas tree goes up against the wall. Well, that one didn't turn out that great, but all right. I'll pass these around so y'all guys can take a look at them. But you can compare. Said as they stand, they're both finished. They're both very shiny. Advantages and disadvantages on both of them. The hard a CA finish will be more hard wearing, and that's one reason why a lot of us put them on there. It tends not to show fingerprints as well as much as the Hut finish will. But I've also seen people who've had 30-year-old pins finish with Hut, and they're still shiny and beautiful. So it's both are great. It's that either one of them is going to work really well for you. It's just and that's a quick down and dirty demo on how to, go through, apply, turn, sand. This is at least my process for sanding, finishing, and applying, the finish on a pin. Um, Good little kit. Now that's the Cigarillo kit from Craft Supply. I know Penn State has one. I like them. They're not a small little cross pin, but they're not that you don't feel like you're writing with a baseball bat. And that's that. If there's one problem that a lot of the beefier pins have is they're just so unwieldy and heavy. And that's why that one's one of my favorite kits to work with. I like the Concava too, but that or the Concava as well. And but that one freaks people out when I start turning it. And y'all have seen I have done that as a demo once before. I didn't think we needed it as again as a demo. I wanted to do at least a different pin. So, any questions about what I did and I can try to answer? No, actually, I might keep those as an example. Can't remember which one's which. That one's a CA. That one's not. I can just in the shine. CA's got a certain gloss to it that the way than what this one is. Yeah, but yeah, it's and like I said, most that's actually good. If you couldn't tell the difference, I'm thank you, because it's I appreciate it. I haven't found. I've tried hot stuff. I've tried Tight Bond, Mercury. I've used some Glue Boost. Um, what was the one we got from SWAT? Was it Glue Boost? Was that the one that gave us all the? No, that wasn't Glue Boost. Starbond, Starbond. I've tried a bunch of them. For the way I do my finish, I haven't really noticed that much of a difference other than if they're putting something in it that doesn't let it set up quickly. Beyond that, I haven't. I'm not gonna say one shines better than the other. It's CA's made in I think three factories worldwide. Everybody else just adds garbage to it to make it play the way they want to. Yes, and I'll tell you why. Um, yeah, CA glue is about the worst thing you can use to glue in a tube. On the hierarchies of glue, that is the absolute worst. CA is water sensitive and heat sensitive. If it gets hot, it's going to fall apart. So I did last night. I did a demo on inside out turning on the Worldwide Woodturners, and I stressed do not use CA on this because if you glue it, yeah, sure, it might last long enough for you to turn a very pretty project, maybe even to sell it. They're going to take it home. They're going to put it on their Christmas tree, and if they live in Texas, they're going to put it in the friggin' attic. And by the next year, they're going to come out and it's going to have four freaking, four things just sitting down out there. There's I use clear Gorilla Glue just because that's the one I like using. Regular Gorilla Glue works fine. And since I started using that, I haven't had a single tube bust off or a single piece of wood bust off any of my tubes. And I had that problem about one in every 10 or 12 on using CA. They would chip off. because CA doesn't have any shearing strength. If you put any force across the glue joint, it's going to pop. And it's, so I've got a lot of pieces. My grandfather used to use CA glue and antler dust or wood dust to glue things together. I've got a box of things. I've got to scrape all that off now because it's all popped off and reattach it with either epoxy or something else so it'll last. I use clear Gorilla Glue. Gorilla Glue. It's a polyester glue. It's weird. I have a little spray bottle. I squirt the tube very lightly. I take the stuff and as I'm spinning the tube, go up about halfway, come back down. Way too much glue on it, but work it through one side, flip it around, work it through the other. I like using it for it's about a third the price of CA glue and half the price of epoxy. You've got a much better work time on it. And it doesn't require you to go soak your hands in acetone or something else to clean it off. Wipes off pretty easily. Wash your hands, it's fine. And then it foams and expands into gaps, which is one of the reasons why it works as well as it does. But I've used it with both wood and acrylics, and I haven't had a problem yet. And I've been using it since I want to say it was like the 2018. We had the pin room at SWAT, and one of the guys suggested it, and I was like, dude, for the price, I couldn't you know pass up trying it. So I tried it, and I've been using it like I said, I haven't had anything break off while I've been working it on the lathe, and that enough for me is worth the aggravation of not using CA glue. CA glue is fine if you really need to get it done today, but if you want it to last, I wouldn't recommend it.
How,
It's a great finish.
how long do you have to let the Gorilla Glue sit before you can turn it?
I usually glue like I'll cut and glue my tubes up one day and then let it sit overnight and start turning the next day. It says I think it says 12 hours on it. 12. So it's you got an 8 minute, I think it's got like an 8 or 10 minute work time. It says it's, tacky or set up in an hour and cures 12 or something like that. It says it on the package. I don't think I have, no, I don't have it with me, but it's not too bad and not any worse than if you're going to work with, epoxy. Cause even though it's 5 minute epoxy, they still say it doesn't cure for 24 hours. So that's why I use a reamer. I I don't use a sanding. I use a reamer to clean out for that reason. I was like, if I was going to do a pin class, like the first day, we would drill the for morning. We'd drill all the pins and glue them together with that, and then I'd spend the afternoon making. This is a busted one, but we'd be making gluing insertion tools, um, the little things to turn your thing into a pin press, and I might have 'em make the little guys that where you can practice making beads with your cutoffs. That whole demo I did, I'd have the whole group doing that the first day, and then the next day we'd turn pins. But that way you learn, gets you into working the equipment and. But that is my method. That's at least a compare and contrast on the two pins. I mean, you can see a wee bit richer, and you get a little bit more saturation in the color on the CA than the thing. But even that, you got to know what you're looking for. And no, thank you. I can sit here and flick every fly off it. I can tell you where all my problems are because I turned it and I know what I did.